Hello, everyone. It's Integrating Real Perspective, the Film Review Corner, and I am now back on reviewing Will Smith's filmography again. And this time I am reviewing Gemini Man from 2019. So, once again, like with Alex Proyas and M. Night Shyamalan, Ang Lee was another auteur to be matched up with Will. He is a director who could create lush images in his films. And, it's almost like you're looking at watercolor paintings moving. He did this with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and with Lust, Caution. Both movies had a romanticism to them and a penchant for poetic storytelling. Like you weren't just looking at characters, but living mythological figures telling a story that was an interpretation of the culture it was set in. And now with Gemini Man, Ang Lee also adds AI technology and CGI magic to elevate his established aesthetic to greater heights. It's like this time I'm watching a watercolor painting with AI clay animated figures that blur the line between real and artificial. And as a matter of fact, the reason why that is because the film was actually shot at a high frame rate of 120 frames per second. So that's the reason why during a lot of the VFX scenes, you notice that there's like the AI version of Will Smith in this film, the younger version of him, which of course I'll get into once I get deeper into my review. It looks like you are looking at a very impressionistic 3D AI figure or sculpture, but there's something very, very lifelike about it. You know, there's a warmth to this being. There's a sentience to it. It's got blood. It's got vital organs. It's alive, and uh, and to have this blend in with Ang Lee's usual cinematic allure is just, the next level up for Ang Lee. Will Smith has actually conceived this film 10 years before its actual release, and he said that he'd always wanted to make a film that would have himself in the present day meeting his younger self, and that it would involve confronting mistakes and lost opportunities that he didn't have. So, more than any other film, this is Smith's most personal film. I feel that this film has the most exotic and the most beautiful locations for Smith to be in. He's in Budapest, Hungary at one crucial point in the film, which of course always lifts a smile, and because of the fact that this film is representing a country that my ancestors on my mom's side originated from. So yeah, it just warms my heart up to see that. The setting, the setting really reveals yet another side of Smith that is unexpected, and it really comes out in the story that he's in. Um, you'll know what I mean once I get into the plot, and then you'll see how the city and country he's in becomes a mirror of his innermost self and soul, how he's become a microcosm of the setting he's in at any number of locations around the globe. So getting into the story, the film um, the film shows Smith playing a hitman named I'm sorry, not Harry, Henry Brogan, who is on the verge of retirement at age 51. He's 30 years into this business, working for the government to take out some of the most evil scum. The last target was a bioterrorist, although soon after the film's opening scenes, it's revealed that that's not entirely a true story. Certainly when some of his best friends start getting picked off one by one, that's when he learns that his boss, Clayton Ferris, played by Clive Owen, is attempting to assassinate him using this Project Gemini. Gemini is a secret lab experiment where Henry's blood was taken and used as a sample to create a clone of him. So basically, it happened a year before Dolly the sheep was cloned. So yeah, you can see that this film does reference some real life events that have happened in history. The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger also referenced the Dolly story too, Dolly the sheep. Um, and so it was interesting because this was Clay's plan to replace Henry with a younger, more ruthless killer that looks like him, but aged to be 30 years younger than Henry. Now, on the surface, it's because Henry is getting soft and growing a conscience. Therefore, he's losing his killing spirit where he needs to be emotionally detached. The case in point was the young blonde girl who was standing in the way of his target on the moving train, where he takes him with his sniper, as Will Smith says, you know, 6 inches off, and that girl would have been dead. That's a really, really hard burden to live with, and just a really, really terrifying futuristic scenario to have hanging over your psyche like that. But, really, it's because Henry is so wrecked and traumatized because he's had to give up a normal life and sacrifice the niceties that most people have, such as having a family, starting a family, having kids, having a real career as a doctor or a lawyer or whatever he's passionate in as far as pursuing a higher education. So, as Henry gets hunted down and framed for the murder of former Force Recon Marine members, former Navy veteran and DIA OIG Danielle, Danny Zakaruski gets pulled into the chase. Mary Elizabeth Winstead plays Danny and does an excellent job at playing her. As with my previous review of The Spectacular Now, I do enjoy Mary Elizabeth's style. She's a very strong and resourceful woman who becomes handy for Henry when he needs her help the most. I mean, just look at her in 10 Cloverfield Lane. What a very strong woman she becomes to um, climb out of the trauma of going through a breakup and then going from that to ending up in John Goodman's basement of this underground base where he fills her head with these gaslighting delusions of there being no life on the surface and that it's dangerous to go up to the surface. So in a similar way here, it's like you're seeing Mary Elizabeth's character Danny coming out on the other side of all that and being somebody who can help and protect um Henry through his search for the truth. Benedict Wong's character too, Baron, was also a real showstopper. I've always loved that guy in basically everything I've seen him in, whether it was Moon or Doctor Strange. Such an amazing guy. He adds that much needed comedy relief where Will Smith would usually be the comedy relief, but he's actually playing it more serious in this film this time around. And then, of course, there is the AI, younger version of Henry Brogan, who goes mainly by the name his father, Clay, gave him, Junior. But later on, he chooses the name Jackson for himself, which is the name of his mother, which was also Henry's mother. Well, their mother's surname, at least. Now, I realize in reviewing this film that I'm going to be going a completely different direction than what I'm sure Ang Lee had in mind. But, that's the reason why I make these reviews here is to just offer my own personal insight and perspective. Um, the heart of the story, from the way the artifice is presented here, is that Henry comes across as a dead ringer of himself who embodies a more primal, ruthless killer without feeling. Truth be told, though, Junior is being played. He's being conditioned by Varys to believe that Henry is the bad guy, that he's Junior's darkness, as he puts it rather generically. But the real heart, the beating heart underneath the floor in the basement of this film is found in the astrological meaning for Gemini as it's used here. Now, I brought up Will Smith's astrology chart in the past, but it's very relevant here to this discussion. Will Smith's rising sign is Gemini, and this movie is a filter through which he creates a universe exploring the light and the dark sides of the twins that Gemini embodies. Both Henry and Junior play off each other's words as much as they do their actions, since Gemini is also an air sign and it deals with communication. And you want a really good example of where this communication becomes essential. Watch the scene where they are talking slash confronting each other in the Budapest catacombs. It's when Danny goes in to try and lure Junior into the catacombs so that Henry can find both of them and uh, attempt to try and take him in. It is a very candid moment between two opposites, two polar opposites. One who hates the other, the younger Will slash Junior hating Henry, while the other wants to relate and develop rapport with his opposite. Henry tries to provide counsel for Junior, even though he has to be guarded and point a gun at him to defend himself, despite trying to negotiate. At one point, Henry tries to reach his soul by invoking basic details about Junior, such as the nightmares that he has, which prevent him from sleeping, and the doubts that make him feel that he's worthless, or that he's a virgin because he's both yearning and also terrified of being in a relationship, knowing that if a girl gets too close to him, she'll discover how fake he is, that he's a non-person. It's a really very heartfelt scene, a heartfelt scene that I will never forget. And it is the most soulful acting I've ever seen from Will. Very emotive and rich. Now, of course, combine his Gemini rising with his knack for diplomacy, that would be his Libra sun, and his ability to plunge into the darkness and come out the other side a wiser person and teacher to his younger self. That's his Scorpio moon. He became a hitman because life with his parents was torture, especially with his biological father. And he only discovered his purpose in life when he sat behind a rifle with a finger on the trigger, with his finger on the trigger. He's a weapon. and everyone else are targets, as he puts it. Coming out the other side of it makes the rest of this movie, though, quite a journey. How older Will becomes a teacher for younger Will, and especially when Junior enrolls in college at the end of the film, which is when he takes on his first official name, Jackson. So it's like their relationship starts out as like these two wires that are trying to attach and trying to exchange an even amount of current between each other. And, there are sparks of joy, sparks of epiphany, and then there's also sparks of erratic mood swings between the two. But ultimately, the ending comes out very beautifully. I mean, especially when Henry and Danny are talking about, you know, like dictating the direction in which Jackson's education should be. Like he needs to take electives. Um, Junior or Jackson wants to get into engineering, but Henry is persuading him to get into computer science. And then, he just yeah, he gets, lets the power get to his head and says, "Hey, I'm your daddy and I know what's best for you. You're looking at 250 pounds of man meat, 51-year-old man meat right here." Yeah, it's like, oh boy, father and son, even though one is one is actually human and one is was manufactured in a lab. Nevertheless, though, artificial or not, the reflection of will uh, over time just transmutes so that it's like now both are just extensions of one another. Both are able to attune to one another's needs very, very nicely. It almost makes you wish like you had a twin watching this film. Makes you wish that, you know, if your soul could actually be made into something material, you would want to create like a materialistic version of yourself. I'm sure that there's, you know, alchemists out there that are trying to figure that out right now. And hopefully, who knows, sometime in the near future, maybe it'll be a reality that will finally come to fruition. So, yeah, that is my review for Gemini Man. Power to the twins. Hey, hey. I mean, I'm not a Gemini, of course, I'm a Taurus, but yeah, one of these days I'll probably talk about my astrology chart in some movie review. So yeah, okay, yeah, so yeah. Um, so that was Gemini Man, and that was now the latest film that I just reviewed in Will Smith's filmography. So I'm gonna call it a day and signing off. See you on the flip side of the reel, my fellow reelers out there. Thank you for your support. Of course, shout out to Mega Media Exchange, as always. Wonderful prices on DVDs and Blu-rays is less than 75 cents. And of course, I will be putting my link at the bottom of the page for ISTA, the Tantra school that I am going to be um, raising funds for so that I can go visit Arizona and check out the school. And yeah, um, thank you for supporting my channel, and I will see you in the next review. Ciao.